Broadcasting live from atop the Rocky Mountains, the crossroads of the West. You are listening to the Liberty Roundtable Radio Talk Show.
All right. Happy to have you along, my fellow Americans. Sam Bushman live on your radio. Hard-hitting news the networks refuse to use. No doubt continues now. This, my fellow Americans, is the broadcast for May 24th in the year of our Lord 2025. This is Hour 2 of 2, promoting God, family, country, protecting life, liberty, and property, using the supreme law of the land, the Constitution for the United States of America. That is our guide. Rejecting revolution, unless it's Jesus' revolution. That's who we are and what we stand for. Last hour, Sam went on a rant. Yeah, talking about all kind of things, but really you got immoral leaders at the helm. That's one of the greatest problems we have. Everybody's talking about, let's use this piece of legislation. Let's use that piece of legislation. Let's use this executive order. Let's block the judges here. Let's have the judges conquer over there. And we've got simply a divide in this country on so many fault lines. It's not even funny. That was intentionally done. The late Secretary of Agriculture, Ezra Taft Benson, wrote a book about this. It's called An Enemy Hath Done This, highlighting that those who don't love life, liberty, property, or the pursuit of happiness, those are the people that are destroying the country. We can stop them, folks. We really can. But it's going to take a good, honest, moral people that turn to their God and repent to get that done. And so I spent the last hour talking about some of these wicked leaders. You know, the perverted private lives that they have, and then they hire fixers so that it doesn't, affect their public life. It's a disgrace, and it's got to stop. And it starts with naming names. It starts with creating accountability. And it starts with we the people saying we won't tolerate leaders like that. So everybody's praising Elon Musk. And I appreciate that. He's done a lot of good for DOGE and everything else. But he's done a lot of bad. He's got all kinds of women, all kinds of kids everywhere. This kind of behavior is unacceptable. I mean, there's quite a bit in common when it comes to women and Hunter Biden and Bill Clinton and Elon Musk. Anyway, I talked about that, and we culminated that relationship of immoral leaders with this idea. Democrat Delaware Governor Matt Mayer signed a bill into law, pro-death. The law allows terminally ill patients to request and self-administer medication to take their own lives. As long as you have a couple of medical professionals there, you're going to have two individuals that are medical professionals sign off on it, and then they can do it. So let me get this right. I can't even get oxygen to save my life during COVID because, of course, that's regulated, don't you know? Get too much oxygen, not enough and you're going to die. Too much, it gets you high, says the old 70s song, right? And you look at that and you go, okay, I can't even do that. If I get strep throat, I can't even go get an antibiotic. No, that's all regulated. But if I want to, have death and commit suicide, all I got to do is get two willing partners like Jack Kevorkian's on board, and they'll just let me request and get that medication and do it. See, that's just dangerous. The Ten Commandments, ladies and gentlemen, are God's blueprint for life. And that's something that we really need to kind of think about and deal with, because you look at that and you go, what does that all mean? Well, to me, it means the Ten Commandments are God's blueprint for life. And in there it says, thou shalt not kill. It also says, thou shalt not, commit adultery. The Savior Jesus Christ has clarified when he lived on the earth, hey, we're going to up the bar here beyond the Ten Commandments. Look, to look on a woman to lust after her. Well, he's already committed adultery in his heart. This is a problem. So these are the things that we really need to discuss, focus on, deal with, concern ourselves with, whatever words you want to use for this. That's where we need to be spending our time, and we're not as a society. As a society, as far as I can tell, we're pretty much what do you want to call it? Pretty much a bad deal, right? Yeah, it's a bad deal for us as people. It's a bad deal societally speaking. All right, the Supreme Court, and I've got a concern with this too. I like DOGE. I think DOGE has done a lot of good. A lot of, it's claiming, hey, we're digging into this. We're getting transparency and accountability here. We're exposing these things. We're shedding the light of day on some things that have been very dark for a long time in America. That's good. That's good. That's good. That's good. Elon Musk at the helm of it. Vivek Ramaswamy at the helm. Vivek took off. Now Musk has taken off. And in the wake of this, the headline says this: Supreme Court temporarily shields DOGE from Freedom of Information Act requests. Matthew Vadum with the epochtimes.com breaking this piece down for us. They say the block will remain in effect for the time being, Chief Justice John Roberts said. I guess he ruled. He didn't just say that, he ruled it. Got it? Good. Okay, they say FOIA, that's Freedom of Information Act, relates to or applies to records created by federal agencies and does not cover records held by Congress, the courts, or states and local governments. The government website explains. Now, my problem with this whole thing is the way this is going down. I thought DOGE was like transparent. So you say, well, Sam, you can't do a FOIA request on them. Why not? Well, because, Sam, they're not really part of government. They're just kind of an advisory agency. I know, but the past two presidents created this organization. They don't have the authority of law to create any organizations at all. Yeah, that started with old Barack Obama, and then it culminated in Donald Trump kind of expanding this new government agency, or this DOGE, right? They say the block will remain in effect for the time being. That's great. I don't know what this means, really. You say, Sam, what do you mean you don't know what it means? Well, what does it mean then when we say there's this government agency created by the executive branch, knowing full well they don't have constitutional authority to do that, right? Right? We know that. But at the same time, we're going to go ahead and say it's fine? See, I don't really understand this. I don't think the president has the authority to do some of the things that are being done. I don't understand a lot of this because we just allow everything constitutionally to just be run over, roughshod, just not caring. I bring it up and they're just like, oh, Sam, it's not really that big a deal. They've been bad for our whole lives. We don't really need accountability. Where are we going to spend our political capital, Sam? And in my mind, if you don't spend your political capital on things in this order, you're in trouble. Life, liberty, and some would say property, some would say the pursuit of happiness. Fine. But if we're not going to protect those people from abortion, or the elderly from whatever, or those who are terminally ill, promoting suicide, where do we go with this? And when this, DOGE comes out and they're like, hey, we're the most transparent folks everywhere. Fine. But when does that matter? I mean, they say, hey, Supreme Court temporarily shields DOGE from Freedom of Information Act requests. The block will remain in effect for the time being, Chief Justice John Roberts said. All right, he ruled. Well, that's fine, but man, I don't think so. Now you say, what do you mean, Sam? You just said it's fine, but you don't think so. Well, let me explain. It's fine that Justice Roberts says that. He has every right to his opinion. But since when are we going to let Justice John Roberts just rule this? What about the other representatives in court? How did this get to the Supreme Court but yet not really get there? Okay, and you got this block now while they supposedly work it out. I got a problem with the block. They say, and I'm going to get into this because this is important, FOIA applies to records created by federal agencies. Okay. And then they say, and does not cover records held by Congress, the courts, or state and local government agencies. That's what a government website claims, right? But I look at that and I go, man, I don't really know how to respond to this because I'm not comfortable with any of this. Are you? In other words, when will this end? It won't. Because if you can start to say, well, hey, FOIA passed in 1966, I think that's when it came out or whatever. It doesn't apply to all these different things. It doesn't apply to DOGE, even though the executive branch created DOGE. Because why? Well, It's records created by federal agencies, and DOGE isn't really a federal agency. It's just an advisory panel, but yet the president created it, and he can't create law, so he can't create agencies. And now you've got, two sides of the aisle, Barack Obama and Donald Trump working on this thing where they basically created and expanded this government agency that's not really a government agency. It's kind of a quasi-government agency, right? It's not really government, but it is, but yet you can't use FOIA against them and get transparency. They're the most transparent organization on the planet. Just trust us. This road is no good, folks. We're being deceived at the highest levels. I'm Sam Bushman. This is Liberty Roundtable Live.
Do you know what is great about America? Ask an Immigrant. Ask an Immigrant is a new podcast dedicated to helping Americans, especially our youth, value, appreciate, and be grateful for the freedoms we have here in America. Join host Lydia Wallace-Nuttall as she interviews immigrants from around the world to discover their inspiring personal stories about why they came to America. To learn more about why America is the most prosperous, greatest country in the world, download the Loving Liberty app or go to lovingliberty.net.
In the medical field, IT security is crucial. Our highly skilled consultants are HIPAA certified and have 20-plus years of experience servicing medical clinics, billing, and supply companies. We offer comprehensive endpoint protection, guarding your computers and servers against all stages of threats. And with our 24/7 monitoring services, you'll never worry about extensive downtime again. Ready to level up your IT support? Call 801-706-6980 today and discover how great IT services can be with managed IT services.
Step into the boots of the American West with Range Magazine, where grit meets grace. This is a front row seat to the stories, struggles, and triumphs of ranchers, farmers, and stewards of the land. From jaw-dropping photography to no-nonsense reporting, Range brings you the untold tales of life on the range. Whether you're a city dweller with a cowboy's heart or living life where the pavement ends, Range speaks to the soul of the West. Subscribe today at rangemagazine.com.
Are you ready to stand up for your community and support your local sheriff? Join the Constitutional Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association and become a vital member of the Sheriff's Citizens Posse. At cspoa.org, we empower citizens like you through weekly webinars, arming you with the knowledge to back your constitutional county sheriff. Together, we can uphold our Constitution and ensure liberty and justice for all. Your community needs you now more than ever.
So bottom line, ladies and gentlemen, I am criticizing immoral government leaders. And I'm emphasizing the need, the tremendous need for good, honest, and wise leadership, folks. Okay? I'm urging you to reject immoral leaders. We need to repent and turn to God and his commandments for guidance, folks. That's just a must. We got to do that. And until we do that, it's not going to get better. You can put DOGE in place. You can have all kinds of DOGE reports daily. It's like dominant in the media. And then you can go, Vivek bowed out early. He didn't really do anything with DOGE. He made a couple of suggestions. He was there for the first couple of days. He became a rock star over it. He's now got a nationally known or, whatever you want to call it, famous household name because he ran for president and he was one of the leaders of DOGE. Then Elon Musk bails. Vivek bails. Now you've got DOGE, and it's really, questionable how much they got done. They got a lot of reporting and exposed a lot of things, but how much will really change, we don't know. But now the Supreme Court temporarily shields DOGE from FOIA requests, and they say FOIA applies to records created by federal agencies and da-da-da. It doesn't relate to you and me. See, that's a problem and a half. Anyway, I'm taking it on because I believe until we get moral leadership, good, honest, wise men in office serving us, we're in trouble. Is Donald Trump a good, honest, moral, wise man? I don't think he's as good, moral, honest, wise as I would like him to be. But I think since he, survived a couple of assassination attempts, because he ran for office the first time and won, shocking the world, that he then basically came back, and I think he's a different man than he used to be. Is he perfect? No. Is he a baby Christian? I think so. Is he a Jew? Some say so. I don't know. And I'm not really here to debate his religious tenets or theology. There's not a litmus test on religion for him. So I get it. I hope he's a good, honest, wise man. I hope he's learned his lessons and he's repented and changed. Can I judge his heart? No, I can't. And I don't intend to. But I will say this, we have got to get rid of these wicked leaders. All right, I'm concerned about this next article because you got to kind of ask yourself and wonder, what's appropriate and not in America? We don't believe in kings. We don't believe, at least constitutionally, in standing armies. We don't believe in those things. But you know what? The 250th year is coming up, right? 250 years of the U.S. Army is what this story relates to. And if you go read your Constitution, you're not supposed to have a standing army for more than 2 years. We've got one in America, and it's not good. But the headline says this: President Trump announces magnificent parade in D.C. to celebrate the 250th anniversary of U.S. Army. Kristinn Taylor writes this piece over at thegatewaypundit.com. President Donald Trump announced on Friday the long-talked-about military parade to celebrate the 250th year of the Army, the establishment of the U.S. Army by the Continental Congress, right? The establishment of the United States Army by the Continental Congress will indeed take place in Washington, D.C., they say, on June 14th. Well, yeah, when's that, huh? On June 14th, 2026, as far as I understand. President Trump and the Army were born on the same day. June 14th. Trump will turn 79 on that day. They say, and this is where I kind of get scared fast, they say the cost of the parade, about $45 million. Think about that. Are you fine for it costing $45 million for this parade? Who's going to pay that bill? Yeah, they say in addition to the parade, the celebration will feature a parachute jump, a concert, fireworks, and a speech by President Donald J. Trump himself. I am proud to announce that we will be hosting a magnificent parade to honor the United States Army's 250th year anniversary, or birthday. Anyway, you got to go to America250.org, America250.org to learn more. So maybe you can go there really quick, Liz. Go to, America250.org and see if you can see when is this huge parade, right? When is this magnificence going to happen? I can't tell if it's 2025. It might be June 14th, 2025. But see, to me, that doesn't make sense. Wouldn't it be 2026 we need to have this, right? It's just weird stuff. See when it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be June 14th, but what year? America250.org, just so everybody kind of realizes where to go. When is this thing? Anyway, I don't know. All right. Yeah, America250.org is what it's supposed to be, just the number's 250. So, I don't know how to deal with this. They say for 2.5 centuries, our great soldiers, see, everything is great. Donald's great, soldiers are great, America's great. I don't see how that really works out when you're in immoral, but whatever. 2.5 centuries, our brave soldiers have fought, lived, and died to keep us free. And now we will honor them with a wonderful parade, one that is worthy of their service and sacrifice. Americans across the nation are invited to attend. RSVP at America250.org. Fine. But what does that mean? Does it say when it is? What year? I kind of don't really understand it. All right, so June 14th, 2025, we've got that now finally. What's that? May 24th? So we've got, 24 days or something before it happens? I'm not going to the parade. I'm not going to Washington. Why? Because if you look at the past, you might just get arrested. It might be the next January the 6th. That's why. Do you have assurances that peaceful people won't go to jail? See, that's the problem. Now, they say an excerpt from history.com on the founding of the Army. I think this is kind of important as well. They say on June 14th, 1775, the Continental Congress authorized the enlistment of men. They call them, they call it the enlistment of expert riflemen to serve the United Colonies for 1 year. Wow. Okay, well, that was 1 year, right? This launches the U.S. Army as the first America's, quote, national institution. More than a year before the Declaration of Independence was even published, on July 4th, 1776. Now, we know it was July the 2nd or whatever, but the official day is the 4th, and they didn't have near the communications and all that like we have. And so, they say resolved that 6 companies of expert riflemen be immediately raised in Pennsylvania, 2 in Maryland, and 2 in Virginia. Yeah. Anyway, there's a Continental Congress resolution that documents all this and all this kind of stuff. With the resolution, the Congress adopted the, quote, New England Army of Observation, making it the Continental Army. The fighters were charged with defending the 13 colonies from British attack in the Revolutionary War. That's great. 1 day after issuing the resolution, Congress unanimously selected George Washington, the Virginian with a strong military record, to be the commander-in-chief of the new army. Anyway, after then, taking care of business in the Army, back in 1789, he was made the next president, or the first president of the United States. They say the parade will run from 6:30 to 7:30. The concert starts right after that, with fireworks set for 9:45 p.m. The events to take place. I guess the festival runs in the Washington Mall, and it runs all day. Anyway, they say there's a press release with times and details for the activities. The United States of America is what we're talking about, ladies and gentlemen, to honor the 250th anniversary of the U.S. Army with a grand parades and celebration. Anyway, there you have that. I find that fascinating, right? What do you think about that? Do you want to go to that thing, Liz? Yeah. Not in D.C., you don't want to go? Okay, neither do I. Because the problem is you can't be sure that if you go to D.C. that you'll be safe. You might just go to prison. What did you do? I don't know. I ate a hot dog on the National Mall without permission. I don't know what I did, but there. This historic event will commemorate, they say, the legacy and the enduring strength of the U.S. Army while looking boldly towards the next 250 years of American patriotism. Wow. And technological advancement. Yeah, we want to embrace the spirit of resilience and service. I get it. But don't third world dictators celebrate their military and promote their military like that? That's a question. When we get back, let's talk about it more. I'm Sam Bushman. There's a lot of news everywhere, people. We got to embrace it. We got to repent. We got to turn to God Almighty and obey His commandments. Hang tight. This is Liberty Roundtable Live.
Your daily Liberty News Wire. You're listening to Liberty News Radio.
Breaking news this hour at townhall.com. I'm Bob Agnew in Washington. President Trump is addressing the graduating class at West Point this hour.
Civilians, they're making their decision right now. You've already made your decision. I love your decision. You have to do what you love. You have to do what you love. If you don't love it, you'll never be successful at it. And you've done this, and you really, many of you in the audience, many of you that are graduating, you come from military backgrounds or you love the military. It's what you want to do. It's what you want to talk about. One thing I see about people that love the military, that's all they want to talk about.
The White House, meanwhile, drawing attention to gas pump prices this holiday weekend. Here's White House correspondent Greg Clugston.
With many Americans traveling over Memorial Day weekend, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt points to a bright spot in the economy.
According to the fuel savings platform Gas Buddy, the national average price of gasoline is expected to be $3.08 on Memorial Day.
And that's well below Gas Buddy's average of $3.58 per gallon on Memorial Day last year. AAA forecasted that more than 39 million people are traveling by car this weekend. Greg Clugston, Washington.
The Trump administration will stage a huge military parade in the nation's capital next month. That parade is set for June 14th and will mark the U.S. Army's 250th anniversary. Walmart has some plans to cut some workers. We get the details from Bill Alexander.
1,500 jobs are on the line as part of a restructuring push to simplify its operations. The company's plan will impact teams in its global technology operations, e-commerce fulfillment in U.S. stores, and its advertising business Walmart Connect. The news comes less than a week after the company's announcement that some prices will be raised by the end of May due to President Trump's tariffs.
More on these stories at townhall.com.
Wesley Financial Group is not a law firm.
Hi, I'm Chuck McDowell, the timeshare cancellation guy and founder of Wesley Financial Group. And I want to set the record straight. I am not an attorney. I've never wanted to be an attorney. And the truth is, I really don't even like attorneys. If I sound like an attorney, I apologize. But what I've learned in my 15 years in the timeshare cancellation business is you don't need to be an attorney to get folks out of their timeshare. At Wesley, we've helped over 40,000 families cancel their timeshare, and I want to share with you how we do it. Just give my office a call. I guarantee if we take you as a client, we'll get you out of your timeshare, or you'll pay nothing. Attorneys, this was meant to be funny, so please don't sue me, especially my friend Kenneth from Black River Falls, Wisconsin.
Call now for your free timeshare exit info kit. 800-613-5454. 800-613-5454. 800-613-5454.
Imagine a school where faith and integrity are at its center, where heritage and responsibility instill character, where educating both hearts and minds brings about academic excellence. There is a school in American Fork where character and embracing the providence of a living God are fundamental, where students' national test scores average near the 90th percentile. Based on LDS principles and a love of country, now in our 39th year, American Heritage School is accepting fall enrollment for kindergarten through high school. What would you do for your child? Give them an education that will prepare them for life. Located east of the temple in American Fork, American Heritage School is a remarkable and affordable alternative. Visit us, find us online, or in the Yellow Pages. American Heritage School in American Fork.
This is a battle between truth and deceit. A battle between forces that would enslave this country in darkness and between a media that wants to present you with the truth. We are being censored. America's news outlets no longer provide the truth. 90% of news outlets in the United States are controlled by 6 corporations. The mission of the Epoch Times is to chase the truth, to ground all statements in fact.
TheEpochTimes.com. Looking for an IT partner that truly understands your needs? Managed IT Services is the answer. We meet with you regularly to discuss your goals and form a tailored technology plan. Our customers have called us a trusted advisor who delivers. When it comes to IT, we do it all. Firewalls, cloud storage, server migration, and more. Say goodbye to long-term contracts and hello to a team that earns your business month after month. Call 801-706-6980 now and let Managed IT Services transform your IT experience.
Broadcasting live from atop the Rocky Mountains, the crossroads of the West. You are listening to the Liberty Roundtable Radio Talk Show.
All right, so back with you live, ladies and gentlemen. I'm on a rant, ladies and gentlemen. Wicked leaders have got to go. Assisted suicide bills being passed in Delaware. I'm just telling you, immoral government leaders are the problem. We need good, honest, wise leadership. Okay, the Ten Commandments are God's blueprint for life. The American Family Association highlights that headline. But, you got this magnificent parade in D.C. that's going to cost $45 million. I bet it costs way more than that, number one. But, hey, we got to really understand. Do we want to be in a scenario where America's broke, $37 trillion in debt? Then have a massive parade with, tanks rolling? It almost, in my opinion, smacks of a third world dictatorship kind of thing, trying to show off their military might, trying to say, hey, we're the top dog here. I don't know that does good. I'd rather come back with a humble foreign policy. I'd rather celebrate the Declaration of Independence. I'd rather celebrate the signing of the U.S. Constitution. I'd rather celebrate the proper checks and balances that the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, that these things represent. Not necessarily a big parade to promote the military. I don't believe in a standing army. I don't believe that we ought to have a super in-your-face military. Should it be strong? Without question. Should it be humble? Without a doubt. Should it look to God Almighty instead of the arm of flesh? Certainly. And those are the things that matter the most, right? We can't just run around and promote the military and wave the flag and Memorial Day is here and wow, it's all incredible. And how do the troops really feel? It's interesting. Donald Trump's going to speak at this big 250th year event on June 14th, 2025. Big, huge event in Washington, D.C. I don't dare go because I'm afraid they might toss me in jail. I don't know what for. Whatever innocent thing I might do there. Okay, we've set a bad precedent to where I don't know that going to Washington, D.C. makes sense ever anymore. It's sad, but it's true. And we've got to really look at that and go back and say, hey, why are we celebrating a standing army and celebrating military in the first place? Now, I think we've got to thank our service members and be grateful for them. How do they feel? Do they feel like rock star heroes? Do most of the military men that just be like, hey, man, I need a day for me, a whole weekend for me? What about decoration days? Okay. Whenever I talk to any leader that's a real leader that is in the military, whenever you thank them, they're a little bit embarrassed, or whenever you promote them, they're a little embarrassed. They're willing to, be graceful about it and say thank you. And, hey, thank you for your service, I say. They're just like, oh, it was nothing. Or they're like, hey, thanks. Or they dismiss it very readily. Because to them, it wasn't a big hurrah moment. It was their friends died in the battle moment. It was a I feared for my life moment. It was a I got injured moment. It was a I went over there, thought I was, promoting God, family, country, doing the best that I could. When I got there, I realized that's not what this is about. This is about dictators and quarterback armchair quarterbacks going, hey, man, let's do that. And it isn't what I signed up for. They're trying to get me to fight with, my hands tied behind my back, or they're trying to get me to, it goes on and on. And that's really the problem that I have. So I'm not really into this celebration. Donald, if it were me, just listen to my advice for a minute, Mr. President Donald J. Trump. Listen to me, please. I wouldn't celebrate this like you're doing. I wouldn't make a big bash, a big whatever you want to call it, a to-do about the military and everything else. I'd say, hey, let's constitutionally look at it. Should we even have a standing army? No. Fine, I'm going to do something about that. Congress, will you help me? That's where I'd go if I were president. And I think we should celebrate the blessings of America. If you want to celebrate the greatest military general ever known, then by all means celebrate George Washington. If you want to celebrate our independence as a nation, then look to the Declaration of Independence as your guide. And it literally focuses on God. And we're going to lay out our grievances before a candid world and before God Almighty to justify our position and the actions we're about to take. Let's start there. Let's point to God in all that we do. Let's not look at a standing army or look at military might and say, yeah, look how bad our military is. See, we don't want that. That's not who we are. Yes, we're tough. Yes, we're strong as a country. Yes, we can take care of business if we need to. But that's not what we lead with. you find that the more somebody babbles at the mouth, the less tough they really are. The tough ones know they're tough. The tough ones know the landscape. The tough ones don't need to flaunt that. Oh, when it comes to taking care of business, they'll get her done. But it's not something they take delight in. It's not something that they really want to celebrate, per se. So I appreciate the attempt here. I feel like it's misdirected to some degree. Let's focus on the Declaration of Independence. Let's focus on Congress. Let's not just have pomp and a big party and a parade and a bunch of fireworks and a beer bust, as Dr. Scott Bradley would say. Let's step back and be in awe of how this nation was founded. As Ben Franklin said, with God's help. And let's then say, if God helped this nation come into existence, God can help us to preserve this nation as well, right? And if we can rely on God to create this nation and to preserve this nation, that's where we need to turn. So let's, I know Trump wants a big old birthday party because he was born on the same day as the Army, I guess. But I don't think that's the wise way to go. I think we'd have a humble event. And I think we should celebrate the thing that matters the most. All right. Donald Trump urged Apple CEO Tim Cook to move both iPhone manufacturing and assembly operations to the United States. Yeah, he did it on Truth Social on Friday morning. Trump said that Cook has been aware of Donald Trump's expectations to relocate the tech giant's operations. He says, I have long ago informed Tim Cook at Apple that I expect their iPhones that'll be sold in the United States to be manufactured and distributed and assembled in the United States as well. Right? Not India or any place else, he said in the Post. If that's not the case, a tariff of at least 25% must be paid by Apple to the United States, Trump says. What do you think of that? I mean, on one hand, I like it. At least 25%. I don't know that you need that kind of an outrageous tariff to be that expensive. This is where we need to be very careful. When do tariffs help versus when have we crossed the line into exorbitant, Anyway, I think that's really important, and I would love to see iPhones built in the United States. I'm kind of frustrated with smartphones in general. They just basically ruin your life. They become a time suck. They become an addiction. You got to check your phone 3,000 times a day. You gotta. I'm almost tempted to go back to a flip phone. I know that sounds like hyperbole on one hand, but on the other hand, not so much. I really have a problem. Now, there's reasons that I am struggling to go back to a flip phone. I use an application to keep track of my blood sugar, and, it's great to have the directions, and, there's some real value. But, man, when do smartphones become more of a problem than good? I mean, they're good when you want to go to lovingliberty.net and listen to the radio. They're incredible. When you want to watch videos at lovingliberty.net or libertyroundtable.com, when you want to, it's great. But how much do we give up, and how much do we become slaves to our technology? When do we cross the line? Instead of tech serving us, tech owns us? That's kind of really the question. So anyway, we'll see what happens with this Donald Trump / Tim Cook scenario. It's a very weird deal. 25% tariffs. Now, to me, that's very high. I mean, why do I say it's so high? God only asks us for 10%, folks. Most people have trouble even paying that, right? But 25% just in a tariff in government fees? I support tariffs, but I don't support them being that extreme. Now, Trump might say, well, I've got to, put some pressure to change the game, Sam. That's the art of the deal. I get it. But I want to be very careful we don't cross those lines. When is government just too belligerent? I'd like to see DOGE be subject to FOIA requests. You say, well, Sam, just the enemies of DOGE are going to file those. I know. But remember, turnabout's fair play. When the next president gets in that has a different viewpoint, then what's going to happen? See, you got to think down. You got to be like a chess player. And you got to think down the map several moves to go, okay, what are we going to do here and there? And we got to be smart and wise and careful. I pray for Trump and his tariffs, But I'm afraid that we're going too far and we just keep backing off all the time. I don't know that it's the way to go. All right, let's talk about this big, beautiful bill. I've been putting it off till the end of the show because I'm sick of hearing about it. The big, beautiful bill that's up for a vote in Congress is the ultimate fulfillment of the America First agenda, the mainstream press says. I don't know about that. What do you think? That's the problem, right? Anyway, let's talk about what's in the bill from different perspectives. We'll spend the last segment on this. Hang tight. This is Liberty Roundtable Live.
Have you ever had great honey? No, I mean really good, all-natural, raw honey? Well, now you can, thanks to localhoneyman.com. We can ship out our locally made honey all across the U.S. So don't worry, you won't miss out. Plus, Local Honeyman has so many different flavors, like Utah Wildflower, High Desert Delight, Happy Valley, and Blackberry, just to name a few. So purchase your delicious raw honey today at localhoneyman.com.
Do you treasure your liberty? Well, at lovingliberty.net, we most certainly do. And we want to help protect your liberty too. Become part of the family. Everyone knows that the core of any society is the family. Therefore, the government should foster and protect the integrity of its family, we the people. Won't you join us as a Loving Liberty sponsor to help us promote the principles in the 5,000-year leap? Let's restore the miracle that changed the world at lovingliberty.net.
As you are aware, America is divided over every fault line possible. This is intentionally fostered by those who do not love God, family, or country. We believe a peaceful future as a free people absolutely depends on civility. Clarion Call for Civility is looking for funding and volunteers at every level to make our hopes and efforts a reality. Please donate, sign our pledge, and help us in our sacred cause. Please visit callforcivility.com for more details. Callforcivility.com.
Bypass the mainstream narrative with Liberty News Radio at libertynewsradio.com. Engage with charismatic hosts live or on demand. We cover the crucial news focused on God, family, and country. News that other networks simply refuse to use. Think of LNR's hard-hitting news and podcast at your fingertips, anytime, anywhere. Join us at libertynewsradio.com. Empower your day with the truth, because the truth will set you free. libertynewsradio.com.
All right, back with you live, ladies and gentlemen. I've been talking about morality for the last hour and a half plus. We have got to really focus on this. Look, immoral government leaders are the problem. We need good, honest, wise men to serve the people, folks. We've got to find them. Okay, we've got to reject immoral leadership. We've got to repent, and we've got to turn to God and His commandments. That's what we got to do. All right, this big parade's happening June 14th, 2025. Donald Trump turns 79, and they're going to have a massive parade and everything else. I think it's misspent money. I don't think we ought to do that. We don't need to spend literally $45 million on that. Let's decrease expenditures. But President Trump now urging Apple CEO to go ahead and, hey, create the iPhones and assemble the iPhones and everything else in the United States. I'd love nothing more. But 25% tariffs are way too high, in my opinion. We're talking about the big, beautiful bill that had a vote in Congress now. It's the ultimate fulfillment of the America First agenda, they claim. And they claim that it's passed the House now. It goes to the Senate. It's in the hands of the Senate. But they say, here's what's in the bill. And I find this very interesting. The largest tax cut in American history. I pray that's true. But I got a question. I'm for a tax cut if we reduce spending to match that tax cut, 100%. I'm all for it. But if we have a tax cut, then we're not going to decrease expenditures to the point where it takes the difference, and we're just going to pile that on the debt of our children. I think that's a horrible mistake. They say no tax on tips and overtime. What? No tax on tip or overtime. Wow. Okay. They say historic tax relief for seniors on Social Security. Sounds really good, right? $10,000 deduction for interest on vehicles made in America. I support an America First policy, but that's going a little too far. Where do you get $10,000 deduction on a private car sale? This is what I mean. We're really starting to get government mixed with the private sector. One of the planks of the Communist Manifesto is control of manufacturing and control of big business. Basically, big business is owned by the private sector but controlled by the government. It's an ultimate fascism play. They say tax-free MAGA accounts with $1,000 for every child born during this administration. I get that Trump wants us to have children. We're not at replacement levels. This is what I mean by turning to the God of our forefathers, right? We got to be bringing children into the world. It's a blessing. But we've had government and we've taught people and propagandized people so much so to where most people don't want to have children, right? Anyway, they say increased deductions for small businesses. And that's good. Depends on how you define a small business there. See, I like these cuts and I like these discounts and I like this progress. But see, I don't like taking a slice of the pie at a time, because what you end up doing is pitting American against American, business against business when you do that. They say 1.4 million illegals removed from Medicaid. See, that's phenomenal. How they ever got on there is another discussion. Whose head's going to roll? Who's going to pay it back? Who's accountable for that? They say full funding for the border wall and border security measures. I'm for the border security measures, but I've said this forever. I'm not really for a wall. I believe in a wall-less America. You say, well, Sam, it's designed to keep out the bad guy. Yeah, but it also could be used to keep people in. I support a big, beautiful bill, but I don't support that. They say urge Congress to pass the bill. But the path forward is tough with razor-thin margins and internal disagreements. Some in Congress may be putting this crucial bill at risk, they claim. Well, my problem with this whole thing is, folks, I'm not really for the big, beautiful bill. You say, Sam, why are you not for that? What do you mean? This is good. Because I believe it's spending us into oblivion. We're spending more, not less, on the military-industrial complex. $1 trillion. By the time you deal with $1 trillion of interest on the debt, and by the time you deal with $1 trillion in the military, and then by the time you back these socialist welfare, whatever programs, there's no place to really cut a whole lot. I know they want to say, well, let's get rid of fraud and the dishonesty. Okay, good. It's a good start. But I don't think they're really setting the stage for that. I really don't. All right, that's the problem. All right, next headline before we end the hour. Supreme Court lets Trump fire agency officials, but then moves to protect the Fed, meaning the Federal Reserve. Jess Bravin, UPI.com, with this piece. It's a very interesting headline, in my opinion, because the repercussions are serious. So Trump can fire agency officials over at the Federal Reserve, but they're moving to protect the Fed, saying, you can't get rid of the Federal Reserve chairman, and you can't this, and you can't that. The Federal Reserve is independent. See, that's the problem. We can't audit Fort Knox. We can't audit the Fed, but the Fed's a quasi-government agency that Trump doesn't really have control over. Anyway, they say orders suggest that they say justices will soon eliminate congressional power to insulate agencies from the White House. I don't think the courts has the authority to eliminate Congress's authority. I mean, do the courts have that much authority to just reduce congressional authority? See, I don't think so. Anyway, Trump says he has no intention of firing Fed Chair Colin Powell. Powell. It's not Colin. Colin. Sorry. Anyway, getting rid of the Fed chairman. Trump says he's not going to do it. Well, I get it, because Trump's saying, there's a line there that I can't cross or I get in trouble. I get it. But to me, the whole thing's a disaster. In April, President Trump spoke in the Oval Office days after he last out against Fed Chair Jerome Powell on social media. Well, that's good. I mean, I appreciate President Trump saying this guy's a clown. But we need to do something about it just to keep him there. What good's that going to do? And Trump appointed this guy that now he says is a clown. Anyway, the headline says, Washington, the Supreme Court granted President Trump an emergency request to fire federal commissioners, but it went out of its way to say, hey, you can't interfere with the Federal Reserve and the financial markets. The order, they say, was unsigned, no auto pen, I guess, as is typical in emergency actions. But the court said an ideological division was clear. The conservative majority emphasized the risk to Trump's rights. But at some point, you can't overturn long-standing Supreme Court case decisions. It would be fiat to do so. That's what Trump is saying, or that's what the courts are saying. So I appreciate it. On one hand, they gave Trump some authority there, but then they kind of ratcheted it back, and now they're trying to reduce authority in Congress. To me, it's a lot of big mistakes. All right. This is interesting. Oklahoma Senator James Langford is introducing a bill into Congress that will combat recent drone activity from Mexican drug cartels on the U.S.-Mexico border. The Daily Caller has learned. Now, I've supported drones on the border for quite some time, but now you got illegal aliens with these, and drug cartels with these drones on the U.S. border. The Border Drone Assessment Act, which Arizona Senator Mark Kelly is co-sponsoring, would, listen, require the Undersecretary of Defense for Intelligence and Security to analyze the threat on the nation's borders. That threat assessment would include a detailed report on who specifically is operating the drones, what threat the drones pose to U.S. national security, what data they may be collecting, and how will that data be used. I think it's a really, really serious question. They say the bill would require the Undersecretary to submit a detailed report to Congress, including a description of the tactics used by the drone operators, a description of current U.S. capabilities to countermeasure, if you will, and then, let's see, the goal is to, how do you legally protect people who have a right to operate drones on the border? When American airspace is violated, ladies and gentlemen, America should be able to defend itself, right? We need a clear strategy to counteract these unmanned aircraft that cartels use and threaten border security. The U.S. military has noticed an increase in cartel-operated drones in recent years, although they have actively not been able to or not willing to engage them. But they say that could be changing as the Department of Defense said, hey, they may be putting up aerial countermeasures. Anyway, there you have that. I find that fascinating. As we address these threats and consider using our own drone technology, we must prioritize Americans' privacy. I agree. Let's get it done. Let's put some drones on the border. Let's stop these drug cartels. Trump's making a big difference there, folks, and let's not pretend it's not. It is a big deal, and it is good for the president to do that. We got a lot more to work on. We need your help. Hey, lovingliberty.net, spread the word. Happy Memorial Day, and God save our republic.